Welcome back to the Hardware Unbox podcast for episode 110. We're going to be diving deep into the well of Reddit. r/AMD had some thoughts about our recent 4GB GPU video relating to the 9050 that we're going to talk about because there's some really bizarre stuff in there. A lot of cope, a lot of defending of a corporation that we don't agree with. So we'll get into that, talk a little bit about some other news. And then both of us have recently watched The Mandalorian and Grogu. So we're going to give our sort of review / take of that movie in the Boring Life section if you're interested. So let's get into it. I was a bit concerned coming to this podcast, Steve, that we wouldn't have all that much to talk about. But then earlier today, you linked me to a nice Reddit thread on r/AMD. And we're going to have some great discussions about some fanboy opinions on one of our latest videos, which I think is going to be quite amusing. So I assume that you watched the entirety of my gaming on a 4GB GPU video.
I did, yes. Yep. Very good. I enjoyed it the whole way through.
So what do you make of the old performance of the 4GB card in that particular content?
Well, I said to Bailyn, I said it's kind of annoying because I just tested the 4GB versus 8GB 6500 XTs for a video that will be on the channel the night after the podcast goes live. So it was kind of disappointing because, I know how bad the 6500 XT is, obviously. I told everyone how bad it was when it came out and not to buy it. And we've done a few updates since then. So really bad graphics card, well aware. But I haven't tested it for a while. And I do have the 8GB version, so I thought, I'm just going to retest these two to see the difference because it gives us some insight between the two flavors of the 9050. And I was shocked in, again, having said all of that, I still managed to be shocked in a few examples by just how bad the 4GB 6500 XT was. And the 8GB version is certainly not amazing, but the 4GB card in 2026, really is an abomination. It's very difficult to use. Of course, if you focus on, Fortnite using the performance mode and stuff like that, then it's perfectly fine because those games use like 2 to 3 gigabytes of VRAM. So not a problem. And they're also designed to run on potatoes. There's mobile versions of those games, so they can be really quite heavily cut down. So those games played well, but a lot of the games played poorly. So watching your video, it was kind of fun because when you got to certain games, like, oh, I know how bad this was because I just played it, and then seeing your reaction to how bad it was, and when you'd start at like high settings or something like that, I was just laughing at, oh, I've tested this on ultra low and I know how bad it is. Like Crimson Desert as an example, that was horrific, and I was laughing at when you put it on I think it was the ultra low preset, just how blurry the game is. And I tried to find out had it lowered the base render resolution or was there something turned on, and I'm not sure what's going on there, but it looks so bad and I couldn't work out why. So anyway, and it still performed poorly. So watch the whole video. I very much enjoyed it despite the fact that I'd had a bit of a spoiler going into it just days before. But you tested some games that I didn't look at. So it was good. And obviously the sarcasm and just your reaction the whole way through it, I found it entertaining. And looking at the comments, I think most people agree that the sarcasm and just your experience in basically real time going through it was very entertaining.
Yeah, I don't normally make videos like that. Obviously, most of my content is pretty straight down the line type stuff, just telling you, scripted sort of video content on reviews or whatever. But in real life, I feel like I'm more like what this video is like, just sort of, taking the piss out of products that kind of suck and, goofing around and doing stuff like that. So in the video, I hadn't used the 6500 XT before I put it in the PC for this video. So I didn't know what to expect from any of the games. It wasn't like I went through and pre-selected titles to show them all running poorly. It was just, these are the games that have come out recently that I'm quite familiar with because I'd played the whole way through or whatever. And so it was very interesting to sort of see exactly how it went. And yes, I think most people sort of got the idea that, it's meant to be a lighthearted video. You watch sort of the first 2 minutes, you should probably get that it's kind of a humorous take on what's going on, very sarcastic. And if you didn't understand that, I guess it's kind of a skill issue because I thought it was very obvious.
Well, none of it's misleading or inaccurate though.
No. It wasn't like I was goofing around trying to make it like run 4K ultra settings or whatever. Like I went in and genuinely ran games on the lowest possible settings most of the time, and even then, it wasn't really possible to get the games running well on that particular model. But then you sort of go over to the good old r/AMD, who were much more upset about this video. I guess one of the things that I always find surprising, just sort of the initial reactions from some of the content, is the idea that the video was clickbait. Now, I'm not immune to using clickbait, and we do have some titles that are less literal and sort of you have to click through to see what's going on. This video has one of the more literal titles and thumbnails. So for people to sort of say, oh, another clickbait video from Hardware Unbox, and this is maybe just us, ranting about the opinions to our videos, but there were multiple comments complaining about the clickbait on this video. Now, again, the title of this video is, just for reference, I gamed on a 4GB GPU. AMD screws gamers again in 2026. And the thumbnail is me looking a little sick, a genuine screenshot of Crimson Desert that I took directly from the video with 24 FPS ultra low on the screen, which is the typical performance you get from this card, or actually slightly better than that. Now, I don't know about you, Steve, but in the video, I gamed on a 4GB GPU and also shared the opinion that AMD is screwing gamers again in 2026 by offering a version of this product to people. So to me, at least, that is not that doesn't meet my threshold for clickbait. If you clicked on this video, you got exactly what was being shown to you, basically.
Yeah, look, clickbait's just become an easy scapegoat for people who want to discredit your work. Like, oh, they just clickbait, or that's clickbait. Like, it's just a lazy way of discrediting something that, you fundamentally disagree with, or it hurts your ideology, whatever it might be. And these guys being, I think it's fair to say a lot of them are AMD fanboys, because people get upset when you characterize people in that way. But if you are defending what AMD is doing here, really in any shape or form, it pretty much puts you straight in the fanboy camp, because it's an indefensible thing. As a consumer, you should not be in any way defending AMD releasing a 4GB GPU in 2026. We'll get into it, of course, but there's no justifiable reason for them doing that. And certainly not certainly not a justifiable reason for the way in which they did it. Same product name, putting it in OEM only channels, and so reviewers and people who generally test this stuff can't easily get their hands on it. Then when people do research it, they see the 8GB card, so it's masking all of the actual true performance of the 4GB model, and the list goes on, which we'll get to for sure.
Well, which we will get to, because it was interesting reading through this thread. And to be clear, when we sort of talk about this sort of feedback to videos, I want to make it clear that I'm not upset about this feedback. I find the feedback very funny. I enjoy going through the fanboy comments and tearing them to shreds. So I don't want this to come across as like I'm seriously upset that people have criticized this video, because obviously I understand that most of the feedback outside of like an AMD sort of echo chamber is kind of very positive and got the message of the video. But so a lot of this, I just want to say, is this is sort of lighthearted, I'm going to make fun of these comments sort of things.
Yeah.
And these commenters should feel bad, just to be clear. They should feel bad about leaving some of these comments, because they're very bad.
They're very dumb. And the whole point of the podcast, as we said from the very start, is there's no rules with the podcast. It's a very casual thing where you and we often found ourselves multiple times per week having a long phone call that sometimes went for an hour, where we would just talk like mates about the dumb things that happened, or conversations we had with other people within the industry, or whatever it was. And that's really what the podcast is about. It's not just about discussing the news of the day. Like, it's not just a news podcast where we talk about the news. There's personal stuff in there, and we just give our opinions on things. It's not just facts and figures. That's what the main channel's for. This is more just a casual, we have a chat. So keep that in mind as we go through it. And if you hate when we give too much oxygen to people leaving dumb comments, then definitely don't watch this episode, because a good portion of it, that's exactly what we're doing. We're having a laugh, but at the same time, we will be, explaining why these comments are silly, and there'll be some actual information and context provided. So that's your disclaimer. Let's get into
Yeah, I
it.
mean, some of the comments I would sort of say fall into the category of, kind of letting AMD get away with it. So sort of like
Mm.
these excuses are very much like, oh, we should just dismiss this because it's not relevant, or this isn't a big deal, right? I would sort of, and we'll get into this. I think it's probably a bit of a bigger deal, but certainly the first comment that I saw, and this has 78 upvotes on Reddit, so one of
That's the
the more
shocking
popular
part.
comments.
You read one of these comments, right? And you're like, oh, that is the dumbest thing I think I might have read today. And then you see that's heavily upvoted, and you're like, well, like, what the fuck's going on here? Like, it's
Yeah, so
painful.
at least 78 people agreed with this. So they sort of said, to skip the bait. Didn't get a 9054 gigabyte because you can't buy one. You actually, I think, soon will be able to buy one, but that's
Oh
kind of
yeah,
irrelevant.
yeah.
The part that I wanted to discuss is OEMs asked for a 4 gigabyte card to sell cheaper PCs. That's all there is to say about this.
Oh, is that all there is to say about?
Yeah,
Wow,
that's all there is. Sorry, guys. OEMs wanted to do it, therefore, okay.
yeah,
Right? Like,
okay,
isn't that
yeah.
how this works? OEMs can just, like, it doesn't matter who gets it. Dell, Lenovo, I think there's a CyberPower option. It doesn't matter. They could just use the most garbage pieces of hardware ever. But it's because they asked for it. It's fine.
There's so many angles to explore this from. Like, I can just see them, how the regard in which they hold AMD. AMD's sitting there like, oh, it'd be so good if we could give gamers 16 gigabyte graphics cards for $50. It's all we want to do. And our hands are tied. There's no way we can do it. We just want to give gamers the best products we can. And we don't want to do a 4 gigabyte card, but like Dell's begging us. So I guess we'll do it, guys. We don't want to. Like, it's not a thing, but we'll do it. We'll put our name on it. We'll promote it. We'll advertise it. I guess we'll make this 4 gigabyte GPU because, gamers need it so bad and we're just going to help them out. Like, what are they? I don't know what they're thinking, like how they come to these conclusions. AMD's definitely like, well, we can sell this silicon for what we can sell it for while maintaining our margin. But then, we don't really want to have to pay for 16 or 12 or 8 gigabytes of VRAM. It's pretty expensive now. Let's just do 4 because we can still sell our portion of it for what we can sell it for. And it kind of works with 4. Not really enough, obviously bad in 2026, but we'll just give them that because it works. Like, I just don't know how they think this works, because a lot of people have said stuff like, yeah, but Tim or Steve, there's a DRAM crisis at the moment, and what do you expect AMD to give us? Like, we need these value options. And I'm just thinking about, like, they're maintaining high margins on their silicon. They can afford to give you an 8 gigabyte graphics card for basically $300. Well, they
It's
are.
like,
They're giving you and that's the other thing. Like, they're giving you the 8 gigabyte model apparently for $280 US. But what do they think do they think the 4 gigabyte model is like 140? Do they think that's what they're selling it to these people for? We talked about this last time, but they make these crazy assumptions without knowing all the facts. And you could argue we don't know the price of the 4 gigabyte 9050 yet. But we kind of do. We have the experience. It's not $140, guys. Like, we warned people about the price of the Steam machine. We're right about that. There's no shot the 4 gigabyte model is significantly cheaper than the 8 gigabyte model. There's no shot. They're taking 2 chips off it. That's it. How much does a 2 gigabyte chip cost?
Yeah, how much is it per gigabyte these days? From memory, I'm not sure, but it's not going to be. I mean, they're still selling a 16 gigabyte card for $400.
Yeah,
like that's the current going. Anyway, the way I sort of see this is, that whole argument of like, well, people have to have something for a low amount of money. Is, imagine you go into like McDonald's or something, and you see the price of a cheeseburger is, I don't know what it is these days, $5 or something, and you're like, I can't really afford $5. What can you do me for like $3 or $4 or something like that? And then the McDonald's employee is like, no, not even that, because cheese is edible, right? Like, you can be like, oh, cheese is okay. What they're actually giving you is like, we can get you this human turd from out the back if you would like. And you're like, I'd rather not. And they're like, well, yeah, but that's the option, right? You can get the burger for the actual like $5, whatever, but For
I love
below
how,
that,
I
it's
love
human
how
waste. Sorry.
I love how it's a human turd and not just a turd. Like you're being very specific with your turds.
Well, I mean, what's the supply chain for
Oh.
non-human turds like at McDonald's? But all I'm getting at is like, there's a point where the product is so bad that you just shouldn't offer it. And even if it's a situation where someone can't afford the actual product that makes sense, the good quality product, you're actually doing people a disservice by offering them a worse product for less money. Because what this will just do is it will end up being people wasting their money. They're not spending money on a slightly reduced, cheaper version that's good value. They're actually wasting money on an insufficient product that isn't good enough for a wide range of tasks. And again, people will make the point, well, what if I'm just playing one specific type of game or whatever? Like I only play Counter-Strike or something that doesn't require a large amount of VRAM. Don't buy this brand new model for a start. Just go on the used market and buy like a dirt cheap 4 GB GPU from someone's old system because you have a very specific use case. You're trying to spend the lowest amount of money. That's what you should do. But for new gamers who are buying brand new systems in 2026, and again, it's OEM only, so you have to buy a whole new system to use this card. You shouldn't be buying something that sucks because you're just wasting money. The minimum option that AMD should be offering people should be something that's actually usable. And
Yeah,
that's where I get annoyed is like, yeah, okay, you can't offer a GPU. You can't offer a GPU that's cheaper than $280 or whatever right now that's kind of usable. Okay, so that's the minimum. That's the floor. You can't go below that. It's unfortunate. That sucks, but that's the reality right now. Don't go starting like should we be accepting a 2 GB GPU? Because what if the 4 gigs model is too expensive? Do we go down to 2 gig, cut it to a 32-bit memory bus or something? Like we have to set a limit for what is acceptable to sell.
yeah, and those arguments also conveniently overlook the fact that they're doing extremely anti-consumer things, like again, same product name, the way in which they're executing this product launch, every aspect of it is anti-consumer. So that's all bad as well. But then, yeah, they're preying upon, and again, this is, I get what frustrates me and you is that we're advocating for better products for these people. We're not saying if you don't have enough money, tough luck. We're saying basically a 9050 4 GB, whatever price that is, really should be a 9050 8 GB. And it probably should be better than a 9050, to be honest. Like I'm sure they can, still make money on a better product there. But essentially we're saying those products should be better. AMD shouldn't be preying upon the most desperate people in the market, which is exactly what they're doing in several different ways.
Yeah, so one of these comments here, and this is upvoted more than the previous comment. This has 83 upvotes, right? AMD screws over gamers again in quotes. Wait, isn't this card SI/OEM only? AMD isn't even selling this card to us. It's an option for OEMs, and even then, most of them will probably ignore this. And this is the part that gets me.
What the
Even
hell?
on their website, product/RX Radeon, in a list of all 9000 series at the bottom, they show the 8 gig version, but do not show the 4 gig version. Yes, that's a problem. That's not good. That's not AMD going, we're not selling this to anyone. That's AMD hiding a product they are selling to people.
How has this got 83 upvotes? So if you work through it, it's like, so isn't this OEM only? Yes, that's the problem. Because it shares the same name with the retail part, but is significantly worse in two key areas. AMD isn't even selling this card to us. Who the hell's us? I don't understand that at all. It's a retail product. What?
Yeah, there's
What
a
are you
few
talking
comments
about?
along this line in this Reddit thread that's like along the lines of this model isn't being sold. Like this isn't sold to people. It's being sold to OEMs. It's like, well, who buys the OEM cards?
I don't
People
think
are
they
buying
realize.
this.
I really don't think these guys realize that the 4 GB 9050 is the cash cow for AMD of the 9050 series. Like that's the one they're milking gamers with. I don't think these guys understand that at all. Like that's where they're going to make more money off the 4 GB card than they are the 8 GB card, especially now. So I don't understand that at all. It's meant for OEMs, but then we're not buying it. Like makes no sense at all. And then they point to the exact problem, the website, where they're misleading anybody who does any kind of research into what a 9050 is. by only showing the performance of the 8 GB version, and they
Mm.
don't show the 4 GB version. Like, I don't understand these guys and their logic and their critical thinking. It's wild.
Well, the thread gets better because someone responded to this comment saying it doesn't matter. Parents willing to Best Buy and buy their kids a pre-built gaming PC. So perfectly fine comment. They elaborate on why this is bad. And the same commenter from the original 83 upvote comment said, yes, this is a problem too. Parents will buy the cheapest thing that says gaming without doing any research or even just asking someone who knows. They go on to say people will buy GT 1030 systems and stuff like that. Parents need to at least ask more questions. Now, again, the problem is if you want to do research into this GPU, you can't because AMD doesn't give you any information. If you look up if you're not overly familiar, you're a parent going into a Best Buy, for example, and you're like, what's a 9050? What you will search up and find is all the information about the 8 GB model, including the performance data. And so, of course, you can identify the problem that people buy things without knowing what they're buying, which is, I guess, a legitimate problem. But also, you can't just research your way out of this one. There's no information that AMD provides when you search for this product. I mean, apart from like going to a hardware unbox and seeing us crap on this product or reading about why it's bad on Reddit, but like the official product pages, they don't list the information. They don't tell you that it's bad. And for example, like, doesn't the website show like 007 First Light performance and stuff like that? A game that we just tested and doesn't really work on 4 GB models. I think they claim it runs at 60 FPS. Cyberpunk 2077 at 96 FPS. Like, based on what I'm seeing on the 4 gig cards, like, that'll be a challenge.
Yeah, I'm guessing this person leaving these comments is just really young and immature, because they're saying AMD isn't even selling this card to us. But then he's saying, dumb parents, they'll just buy the cheapest thing for their kids. So this person's obviously not a parent and looks at parents with a different lens. It's just a weird disconnect there, like parents aren't us. I don't really understand that at all. But yeah, parents who have kids who want to play games and they don't want to buy them a console, or if they want to try and get them into PCs, are going to look for a cost-effective PC. And again, like, he points it all out here. If they go and research, he's saying that they wouldn't do their research. But even if they do their research, they'll find the 8 GB 9050 and think, oh yeah, this is going to play all the games at acceptable frame rates, so this is a good PC to buy. Like, the GT 1030 for quite a while, first of all, was a dirt cheap card. It was under $100 US for the most part, wasn't it? They were like $70 US or something.
I think so. Yeah, they were very cheap.
And the DDR4 version came after, but I mean, we tore that apart as well. So it's not like we're, giving NVIDIA a pass while, picking on AMD. I would say this is worse than the GT 1030, though both were disgusting in my opinion. And I said as much in my GT 1030 DDR4 video back in the day. But that's just, I don't know, there's a lot of disconnect here, honestly. But the fact that it has so many upvotes is probably the scary part for me. Watching someone say dumb stuff on Reddit, it's like, yeah, okay, whatever. But then when it's like the most upvoted comment in a thread, you have to question what's going on at r/AMD these days, or possibly at any point in time.
Yeah. One of the other threads that I found very funny was this one. Again, 32 upvotes on this one. Why the F is everyone calling this a gaming card when it's literally office card for when you need to put something in PC? And then there were some replies, including 16 upvotes kind of agree. Not every GPU is for gaming, and sometimes that is kind of obvious. And then another comment here saying, 18 upvotes on this one. But you don't get hate clicks this way. Integrated graphics are enough for gaming, for office tasks and stuff like that. Now, I just want to point people to a listing that has the RX 9050 4 GB in it. So this is, again, so OEM only cards. You have to buy a system. Now, if this person was being legitimate in their criticism and saying that this is not a gaming card and it's an office card, I would expect it to be being used in some sort of office PC, right? Like a Dell Optiplex. Do they still make those? I think so. A Dell Optiplex, something like that, right? No gaming in the name. So the 9050 4 GB is currently being used in the CyberPower PC Gamer Master Gaming Desktop. AMD Ryzen 5 5500, AMD Radeon RX 9050 4 GB.
You can play you can play solitaire on that, Tim. It's an office PC.
You can. Well, Cyberpower disagrees with you because they say
Oh,
the Gamer Master series is a line of gaming PCs powered by
no.
AMD's Ryzen CPU and accompanying AM4 architecture. The
Mm,
Ryzen CPU is the core to the series with fast processing speeds and effortless multitasking. The Gamer Master also includes the latest AMD Radeon or NVIDIA GeForce series of graphics cards to deliver high frame rates and impeccable image quality in the newest games. That is literally the blurb that
mm.
is written directly below this product.
No, you
So I'm
got me.
sorry, it is a gaming card. It
No
is literally
way.
listed as a gaming
No,
card.
no, hang on. Ha- Hang on a minute. You're trying to sit there with a straight face, Tim. Actually, you're smiling. Have a straight face, please. You're sitting there with a straight face trying to tell me that a discrete Radeon graphics card is designed for gaming. Is that what you are trying to tell me?
I know it's crazy, isn't it? Because there's really no need for it in like office tasks. Like you don't.
Oh, no, but they talk. What about off Word? Word would work better with a discrete graphics card, wouldn't it? Like Word.
Yes, I believe that there is some performance limitation
On a
there. Yeah.
serious note, I cannot believe, because I saw at least 3 of these comments, and that it might as well be 3,000. That's how dumbfounded I am that people actually said, and it was probably more than 3 comments, but you guys don't understand these cards can be used for things other than gaming, which is essentially what this comment saying. They were like, like people use their computer for accounting. And I was like, so you think you need a 4 GB discrete graphics card for accounting, and you wouldn't just use an AMD or Intel CPU with integrated graphics for that? Like
Or an
Office
APU.
PCs don't have discrete GPUs because they don't need them. Like someone who does CAD work or Blender rendering, that's not an Office PC. That's a productivity, creation type
It's a
PC.
workstation.
It's a
And a 4 GB
workstation.
card is not going to be sufficient for that. So
That's right. That's absolutely right. So the 9050 4 GB graphics card is no good for productivity because it doesn't have enough VRAM. It's no good for gaming for the most part because it doesn't have enough VRAM. And it's completely unnecessary for anything else like Microsoft Word, web browsing, emails, accounting software. It would be idiotic to buy it for any of those things because you would never use it. So
hmm.
I don't, I just, I don't understand. Well, I do. I think I do understand these Cope comments, but why they feel the need to try and manipulate the situation into like you not understanding what it is you're reviewing. And I don't know, it's crazy to me. But anyway, the point is you're
I
also
mean,
looking at the 6500 XT, which we said would age poorly when it was released 4 years ago now. And you are revisiting
hmm.
that product to show that not only was that product absolutely garbage 4 years ago when it was released, but we're now getting an updated version of that product that it's in no way updated in the ways that it needs to be. Still going to have 4 GB of VRAM, and it's being released in the year 2026. There's just, I don't know.
Yeah, some of these comments, man. I mean, one in this thread, there was a comment with 20 upvotes saying this is. It was someone had linked the 9050 product page, and they said, "Oh, that's the 8 gig version. The 4 gig one, it isn't getting sold or advertised by AMD to gamers anywhere. It's an OEM card." And then later, you sort of scroll down, someone says, obviously this is a comment that's more favorable towards our content. It says, oh, because it's being sold by AMD to OEMs to sell in their gaming pre-built PCs, and you don't see that as a problem. And then a response to this was, I think it's being sold for pre-built PCs. I don't know how much control AMD has over OEMs marketing or creating products. I mean, you can't sit here and say that AMD didn't know that OEMs are going to be putting this in gaming PCs and marketing it as a gaming product. Like, that's just ridiculous, Cope.
Well,
They
because we just talked.
absolutely knew that it would be used in gaming systems.
Well, obviously, because we just explained that it's a discrete Radeon GPU that has no other use case.
That's right.
So imagine AMD being confused that it was ending up in gaming PCs. They created a product that's you can't make a case for it for anything else, really. It's obviously a gaming product. So, and I always love these arguments and this logic, right? So the 9050, which has the same name as the 9050, The 4 GB version, not a gaming graphics card, dummy. Why would that be a gaming graphics card? You're an idiot to think so. The 8 GB card, though, totally a gaming card. Like, obviously, the 8 GB version, that's why it's being sold at retail. That's a gaming card. The 4 GB version, though, that's something else. That's accounting software, Microsoft Word, because you need 8 GB for gaming. It's just the weirdest way of.
I guess
It's
people are sort of
crazy.
likening this back to, again, like a GT 1030, but the GT 1030 was often used, and so these low end cards like a 750 back in the day, those sort of, or the GT 730 or whatever it was. These were used as sort of your display output cards, right? They cost $80. The GT 1030's launch price was $80 in 2017. So if
Yeah.
you need some display outputs, you just need an Office PC, you slot one in. But that's because back in the day, a lot of these systems, they didn't really come with integrated graphics, or the integrated graphics was genuinely almost unusable. And so you'd want to slot in, like, let's say you wanted 3 display outputs or something, or more than one, because a lot of motherboards back then only had one display output. You'd buy a GT 1030 and you'd slot it in, and you'd get these very basic capabilities. But today, with APUs, modern motherboards, and things like that, these cards don't offer functionality that's not available for Office PCs. So again, like, a lot of what you see when you search for genuine Office PCs on a place like Best Buy is you get systems that either use APUs or just use the CPU. And they're often these very compact systems where they don't even really have the capacity to add these things in, because that's where that market has shifted to. So,
So if this was released, they were both retail products, right? And it was
mhm,
$280 for the 8 GB card as it is. If the 4 GB card saw the same dumb name and everything, right? But it was a retail product and that announced $180 US. So it was $100 off for the 4 GB model. That would be obviously a lot more transparent than how they're currently handling it. Obviously,
mhm.
the 4 GB model would be much more well received from us if it was a 9040, for example, would be a more appropriate name, I would have thought. So, but if that was the case, if it was a retail part and it was $100 cheaper for the 4 GB card, how much more receptive would you be of that product?
Not very receptive.
Would you be much more so than you are now, or just equally as disgusted?
I mean, I think it would be more acceptable, but I'm not going to be sitting here saying it isn't a bad product, because the fundamentals of the product are still bad. And
What if it was
I just think,
150?
I
Because
mean, what
think
does
of
that put it
okay,
at?
so if you've got a kid that wants to game, they want to play Fortnite, maybe Counter Strike, like these lighter weight games that can be played in potato modes that would play quite well on a 4 GB 9050, I have to imagine. And you don't want to pay $300 US for a graphics card or $400 US for a graphics card. So you have the option of getting one for $150. What else can you get for $150?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look on eBay to see.
I feel like at that point it becomes a justifiable release that I don't think I would have too much of a problem with. I can't say
Yeah, I
for
think,
sure because we haven't tested it and done all the full analysis, but just spitballing here, I think that's at the point where it'd be like, okay, not ideal, but given the current climate and the circumstances, this is a legitimate product. It's a viable option. And obviously, I'd be far more receptive if it was called a 9040, for example.
mm. Yeah, I think once you get down to that sort of price tier, you're talking about more of a genuine gap between the most entry level product and the sort of next
Yeah,
up acceptable sort of thing.
yeah, it's
Because our
half the
our
price.
opinions our opinion's always been, right, that, when you're in these sort of tiers and there's these garbage products, you should try your best to save a bit more money to get the product that is going to be a lot better, give you better longevity. And, that can be difficult if you're talking about spending, $100 more, or if it's double the price. And so that creates some challenges today, right? Where you see these huge gaps between 8 GB and 16 GB cards. And obviously, there are going to be people priced out of the 16 gig models when at launch, there was only like a $50 price difference. So you'd sort of say, well, for $350 for the 16 gig 9060 XT versus the $300 8 gig model, you should probably just try and save up that extra $50 and get the 16 gig card. But if you're talking about someone that genuinely can't afford the extra $150 that it may cost to go from our mythical 9040 or whatever we want to call it to the 8 gig 9050, and it is this sort of dirt cheap option that people can play, Fortnite on or whatever, and it's just a good entry point to that. And that would probably make these system builds more competitive with like a console, which can also do this sort of entry level gaming. Then yeah, you'd sit back and you'd sort of say, well, I can understand what the use case is for this product. And especially if it wasn't marketed in a misleading anti-consumer way, like it was sort of, this is as we talked about in the previous podcast episode, if this was an esports GPU, like get this for Fortnite, get this for Valorant, stuff like that, then you could excuse it. But I mean, the problem that we sort of pointed out last time was that this system that this model is in is not substantially cheaper than other systems. Because again, it's OEM only, you have to buy the whole system. And not only is it only available in the 4 GB model, you're only getting 8 GB of DDR4 and a 500 gig SSD in that system.
Horrible. It'd be so bad to play on that system. Awful. Like, mate, I'm quite confident that the 4 GB 9050 pricing will leak out in the not too distant future. And it's not going to be $150. It's not going to be $180. I seriously doubt it's going to be $200. It's probably going to be more like $250. And if it ends up being $250, I don't know what the people that are defending AMD in this thread have to say. They'd probably go on to continue because they'd probably defend AMD no matter what. But yeah, it's likely that the 4 GB model is going to be ever so slightly cheaper than the 8 GB model. Almost guaranteed. Which is what we discussed last time. Which, big problem.
Yes. So I'm just having a look through here and sort of to see if there's any other interesting comments here. Oh, another funny one sort of in this group sort of says, AMD already made it clear that those 4 GB GPUs are for a specific OEM and aren't meant to be sold to consumers. Can we please stop with this BS? Which is just, again, sort of in that same vein of this whole idea that because...
Who did they make it clear that they're for? I missed all of that information.
Yeah, I don't know. Did they say anything about that model?
Not that I'm aware
discovered.
of.
Yeah, it was discovered that it was for OEMs, but even then it's irrelevant, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if AMD is selling it directly to you as a DIY buyer or whether they sell it to an OEM who then sells it to you in a system. It's still being sold to a consumer. It's not like the card is produced, sold to an OEM, and then just goes into the ether, it just disappears into thin air and no one ends up with this GPU. This card is sold to consumers. And whether AMD is doing that via dodgy OEM channels where they can be misleading or whether they do it directly to consumers, if anything, it makes it worse, as we've discussed, doing it the dodgy through OEM way, as opposed to just coming out and offering it to people so that they can choose what to buy themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. So the news was that the CyberPower PC was the PC it was designed for. But AMD also says for system builders. So depending on how AMD always says a thing, it seems like they're trying to squash the news by saying, oh, we just made it for this one system that you guys have discovered. While also not just saying that it's for, system integrators that want it. So I suspect we'll see more systems with it. But regardless, the point still stands.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, just this idea that it was, I was just having a look earlier about the whole, office PCs would use this sort of thing. I just had a quick look at Best Buy. Every single PC that is listed in the just all desktop side of things, so not the gaming desktop section, every single one is just like an APU type product. So you've got like your HP Omni desktop, which is sort of like your Core Ultra 5, very basic 8 GB of memory, 512 gig SSD. You can get one of those. You've got like your HP Omni Studio, so that's an all-in-one. You've obviously got the Mac Minis and stuff like that. And even today, like they're offering you, a Ryzen 3 8300G with 8 GB of DDR5 memory, 256 gig SSD. That's a $650 system. So not great, but like obviously cheaper than this desktop PC from CyberPower PC. And yeah, I mean, it's just yeah, it's just bad. As we mentioned before, like obviously the entry level PCs these days are a bit more expensive. You do need to spend around $1,100 at Best Buy to get something with a Core i5 14400F, RTX 5060, 8 GB and 16 GB of memory with a 1 TB SSD. So again, you're spending $250 more compared to that CyberPower PC for a GPU that is probably going to be over twice as fast in real gaming scenarios. It'll actually work in a lot of games, double the memory, double the SSD. It's just a complete no-brainer to try and save up that extra amount of money to get, and it's, iBuyPower, reputable system builder and that sort of thing. We're not talking about anything particularly crazy or whatever. Um, that's what I would be doing if I was an OEM thing. But yeah, we can't just, what would you even call it? Is this like, it's, that people talk about like greenwashing, where companies are like, they do something dodgy, so then they just buy like a whole bunch of trees in a forest somewhere, and they're like, look, we'll just absolve ourselves of all our bad stuff that's going on. Is this, what would you call like washing your hands of like a garbage product through OEMs? Because this isn't the first time. Like, we've seen this over and over again. These low end, like we never see the RTX 5090 dodgy OEM edition where you get like a significantly reduced capabilities. There's always these just so bad entry level products. Um, I don't know what more to say about that. Really, there's probably not much more to say.
No, no, it is just how they offload them. Interestingly, ASRock did initially announce on their website and have a product page for the 4 GB 9050 Challenger, which has since been removed. So I'm not
Mm,
sure what was going on there. It could have just been ASRock making a mistake. Don't know, but yeah, they did at least announce that they would have a 4 GB version, and they had the specs all correct. So not sure what's going on there, because
yeah.
ASRock do supply their products for OEM channels, so it was possible you would get like an ASRock graphics card and an OEM PC, and that may still happen. It's unclear how prevalent these 4 GB 9050s will be. Uh, we'll have to wait and see, but it is at least a real product that AMD was planning on releasing, and I wouldn't be shocked if, given, because I think there has been a fair bit of blowback across the internet that when this news went out, lots of people reported on it. The comment sections were pretty brutal towards AMD. They may be walking back these plans, and you may not see very few of them. I'm not sure. Um, we'll have to wait and see how that all plays out. Yet it's still early days on this one, but we do know that that Summer Power PC, it says sold out at the moment or coming soon, but you'll have to wait and see when that goes
Mm.
on sale and how many more of them pop up.
Well, I think there's obviously the risk as well that, like with a lot of OEM products, that they don't stay strictly OEM only. Like they still will be technically an OEM class product, but then you'll be able to buy them through other channels. Like in some regions, you'll see the
Yep.
OEM only models available as just like a DIY option. AliExpress often
Mhm.
has these products available, and just other regions, you'll often find those models suddenly start appearing or going on sale.
Mhm.
So that is obviously a risk that you wouldn't really want to see either. You just
Mhm.
don't want to see this product really exist at all. And yeah, I think we've said our piece between these two sort of videos, this one and the last one.
Yeah, I think, even AMD saying, it was developed specifically for a partner system designed to deliver strong overall value, so on and so forth. I feel like them doing these, whether they claim to be one-offs or whatever, but these dodgy OEM products that they've done time and time again really dilutes their brand. It's where you get like that
mm,
AMD is trash to your hardware type comments, because they just squirt out all these products that either don't get supported properly or they're massively cut down to the point where they don't work properly. And, I feel NVIDIA, for the most part, does a better job of regulating their products and what they get involved in and what they do. Whereas AMD, if there's a buck to be made, they're willing to do just about anything, it seems. And yeah, I think it does hurt the credibility of their brand.
yeah, I agree. Obviously, Nvidia's done a lot of these dodgy rebrands, having products with the same name. Even in the entry level space, we've seen things like the 3050 originally released with the 8 GB model, then later updated to the 6 gig card, which is sold at a lower price. But even then, like, I feel like a 3056 GB, it's not going to be great in a lot of games, and you will have to really run it on the low settings a lot of the time. But it's still, if you're one of those people, and this is sort of what I brought up at the end of my video relating to the whole, like, why is this bad for people just buying OEM systems who may only want to play these lightweight multiplayer titles, is you still want to have this opportunity when buying any product that you want to, if you stop playing the game that you've been interested in buying and there's like the new latest multiplayer game that you want to play, like Battlefield 6 or something like that, that it's at least playable on the system that you purchased. And so to me, at least, the 3056 gigabyte, while still a bad product, kind of gives you that. Like, if you had bought it for Fortnite, but then you wanted to play Battlefield 6, you probably can play that game using low settings at 1080p and not run into this, VRAM issues that we saw in the 4 gigabyte 6500 XT. So it's not going to give you the best experience. You might be encouraged to upgrade from that point if you want to play games like that long term, but at least you can buy the game, get into it, and often things like a 3050 still make it onto the minimum spec requirements. I know 6 gigabyte cards, it's a bit dicey as to whether they're supported or not in a lot of these games. But 4 gigabyte cards very often are not, they're just not supported by developers at all anymore. And so if you bought a game and you're like, hey, this didn't work well for me, and you try and refund it, and then the developer's like, well, that was actually below the minimum spec. So, tough luck on your front. You should have researched that better. So yeah, anyway, another story that we'll probably briefly touch on before closing out this episode is this story from Video Cards about a Reddit post, which I think has been deleted since we saw it, but it's been talked about on there anyway. Asus has rejected a GPU order. Someone bought a model from I think, was it through the NVIDIA store, and then NVIDIA canceled their order?
Yeah, it must have been.
So essentially, the customer placed an order for $4,429, which is a lot. Asus jacked up the price of this model. I think it was the ROG Astral RTX 5090 BTF version. So I guess they've got a certain motherboard that would be compatible with that. But anyway, they ordered that card. They were charged $4,607. Then NVIDIA canceled the purchase, issued a full refund, and now the same card is listed for $4,982. So it's gone up by $550, despite the fact that the person placed the order when it was in stock for that price. And now they would have to spend $500 more to repurchase that model. NVIDIA sort of sent this message sort of saying, oh, that's frustrating. Bad luck for you. We understand your frustration, especially since the order was placed before the updated price. And they did request to Asus to honor your additional order. However, we're just unable to fulfill it. Tough luck. Sorry. So anyway,
Yeah.
do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, I noticed they talked about how the user didn't mention where they're located, like what region they live in. But in a lot of countries, this would be considered illegal. I'm fairly confident here in Australia that would be considered illegal to do that. Especially if it's not an obvious mistake with the list price, like it's a list price you've been selling at for a while.
That's
they would
right.
have to honor that.
They allow in Australia, I know, for like price errors. So, for example, if there's like a TV that's accidentally advertised for $5 and a whole bunch of people order it, they're allowed to cancel that. But I think in this situation, they can't just be like, oh, sorry, like we had it listed for like 5 weeks at $4,500. Then the second you ordered it, we're going to jack up the price to $5,000. I think that would clearly go against at least our consumer laws here. So yeah, this wouldn't be allowed. But obviously in other countries, and this might be the US considering the currency talked about, but maybe they converted it to another currency for their post. I'm not 100% sure, but the pricing sort of aligns with what we would see in the US. $4,500 is sort of the going rate for like an ROG Astral, generally speaking, or at least it was when I was looking at GPU pricing a while ago.
Yeah, so just to confirm, it was bought from the NVIDIA marketplace, so marketplace.nvidia.com, and the product fulfillment is done through Asus. So basically, they bought it through the NVIDIA marketplace, and then Asus was like, oh, we've changed the price now, so either pay more or we cancel your order. Why the information on the Reddit page has been deleted, I'm not sure. So the thread is still there, all the comments are still there, but the person who started the original thread deleted it. So whether NVIDIA or Asus reached out directly and said, we'll resolve this problem, delete the post, not sure.
Yeah, it is on the r/Asus ROG Reddit. So it's possible that, and I believe I've seen a comment down here sort of saying that maybe someone from Asus has reached out, someone tried to DM them. Not sure whether that's an official Asus rep or not. Um, but it's obviously it's possible they might have gotten a solution to this problem and they're just like, I don't want to keep that up and sort of trash the Asus brand if it ended
Yep.
up that Asus. But again, like you shouldn't have to complain on Reddit about this sort of price change and
Well,
then be like, hope this
that's
blows up. And
that's
but
the
is that the
state of
modern way of life?
yeah, it really is. That's the state of support, the customer support these days. Yeah, the squeaky wheel is really how things get solved these days. You have to make a bit of noise online, otherwise, yeah, it doesn't get solved. But
Yeah, I mean,
we reported not that long ago that we were hearing locally that GeForce GPU prices for models with 16 gigabytes of VRAM or more were going to jump by 40%. And that information looks to be true at this point in time because we've seen regions already report price hikes of that much, some smaller, but yeah, in the range of 30 to 40%. I think Japan
yeah,
just had a 40% jump for 16 gigabyte models.
I think one of the issues that we're seeing, this is just from GPU pricing, all sorts of components that are going up in price. And this kind of ties back into the video that you made a while back about the person that bought DDR5 memory that stopped working. They tried to get a refund on it. Well, they tried to get it replaced and they were only offered a refund. Is when you start seeing these huge price increases across the board for components, people get burned in all of these ways. You know, people ordering products, they get cancelled because the price goes up by the time they get fulfilled. But the more concerning things to me are people who, have already bought GPUs, like someone who'd already bought an ROG Astral a while back. They might have only paid maybe $2,500 or $3,000 for it because they were available for that sort of price a while ago. Then the model dies. And what do? Well, they're only going to, in a lot of regions where it's acceptable to do this, they're only going to offer you a refund on your original purchase price. But then you could be out on a 5090 purchase, like over $1,000 easily if you'd purchased it earlier in 2025 when they were sort of around that. They weren't $2,000 mostly, but they were around 2,500, for example. And now they're currently costing, sort of looking on Newegg, some of the cheapest models are $4,000 maybe. If you're sort of lucky, you can find one for around that price. In fact, I think they're more than that. 4,600 is actually the price I'm seeing, the minimum price on Newegg. You could be out $2,000 if your card dies and you only get a refund on the original purchase price, which is like double what you
Yeah.
paid almost.
Yeah, it's absolute insanity. I was actually just thinking how insane the situation is right now, and has been for a while. We're talking about a $2,000 US MSRP card, as you just said, which seems insane to me to begin with. But we're now talking about that card costing 155% over the MSRP at like $5,100. I I don't know. It's yeah, it's crazy to see. It's crazy to see. I still which I mentioned this on the last podcast where I remember back in the Pascal days, people were saying, "Oh, these GPUs are so expensive now because of reviewers. You hyped them over the years and so on and so forth." Man, I mean, they'd probably be saying the same thing if they could see the prices today, which I'm sure many of them can. But yeah, like I said last time, it's just it's crazy to see. Definitely not the fault of reviewers. It's no reviewer. I can confidently say there isn't a reviewer on the planet that would say buying a 5090 for essentially 5090 is a good idea.
Yeah, it's not.
Who's saying that? Who's recommending an RTX 5090 for $5,000?
Yeah, it's crazy.
There's no reviewer that, I think universally reviewers for a long time have been saying these flagship products are disgustingly expensive and really not worth buying for gaming purposes unless you just have money to burn. And, money's a solved problem. It means nothing to that type of situation. Anyway,
Well,
just a little.
I don't look at the 5090 as a gaming product anymore. There's just no way that I
No,
mean,
it's
yes,
not.
there's going to be your Saudi princes or whatever that, have all this oil money and can just, well, maybe not these days because of the whole issue in that region. But anyway, aside from that, there are people who obviously are extremely well off and can just spend whatever. But there was a point when 5090s, 4090s, 3090s were priced at the upper range of sort of what someone, people used to buy multiple GPUs for SLI configurations. They do all that sort of thing. Those were gaming setups. This is clearly, in my opinion, now a workstation product.
Mhm.
Gamers are not spending $5,000 on a GPU. That's just ridiculous. Obviously,
Mhm.
there's justifications for workstation use cases. It now puts us in a position where the 5080 is the true gaming flagship. Like that is the highest tier that people are realistically going to be spending for gaming GPUs. And obviously, it's still like the 5090 is still a GeForce GPU, so it can be included in their nice GeForce metrics or whatever for their financial reports, even though I think they recently merged that or something. But the 5080 is $1,400. That is the ceiling, in my opinion, for gaming GPUs. And so it's actually going to be quite interesting to see what happens with the next generation of NVIDIA's flagship, which could still be a fair way off. But if GPU prices remain at this level, they could be launching, a 6090 or whatever as a $5,000 card just out of the bat, straight away. But
Yeah,
then
yeah.
people will obviously be like, well, the old model was $2,000 and now it's $5,000. So like the level that you're being screwed, I mean, it's apparent now how much you're being screwed, but
Mhm.
it'll really sort of, I think, piss people off once NVIDIA sort of puts that number in writing. They're sort of listed on the products as being like, yes, our flagship card is now $5,000 and there's nothing you can do about it. Sorry, guys, we sucked you in. We made memory prices really expensive by this whole AI thing. And now, if you want our best gaming product, you're going to have to spend $5,000. Sorry, that's the
Mhm.
price. And
Mhm.
obviously, it'll just get destroyed in reviews because the comparisons will be to a $2,000 model. So, too bad.
Mhm.
So, anyway, that'll probably do it for this week's episode in terms of our normal discussion. We'll take a break. We'll come back and talk about our boring life. All right, Steve, I guess I'll start off this chat in our boring life section because this week I did something which ended up being actually somewhat boring, but to some people, maybe not that boring. I watched the latest Star Wars movie. Now, I didn't see this in
Ah.
the cinema or anything because I have a kid now and difficult to do. But I decided now that it's available for streaming and all that sort of thing that I would watch Star Wars, The Mandalorian, and Grogu.
Well,
So,
Tim, that is very coincidental because Zoe and myself also did that. You are finally discussing some kind of entertainment that I also have experience with.
wow, this would be interesting. We could actually have a chat
Mm.
about this. That's
Yep.
nice.
Yep.
So I went into this movie with quite low expectations.
Oh
I've
yeah.
seen all of the Mandalorian TV show, and while I thought the first season was reasonably good, not amazing, but like reasonably good,
I liked
the
the first season.
the second and third seasons were pretty mediocre.
It
I think,
teetered out big time.
yeah, yeah, and to me at least, like I don't think personally, I don't find the Mandalorian an especially compelling character. I think he's kind of just a blank vessel of nothing. He just sort of goes around, does bounty hunter stuff, and you're like, okay, cool. And
He's a
Grogu
fetch
is like,
quest master.
yeah, he's a fetch quest guy. Grogu is just like baby analog for marketing and merch purposes.
It was
Um,
intriguing initially, and then yeah, it
yeah,
just didn't develop
it's
at
like,
all.
and of course they've got the problem with Grogu that because he's a Yoda species, he can't really age or improve his skills in any way because he lives for 800 years. And so, unless you want to age the Mandalorian by like 50 years, he's not going to do much. So, anyway, I went into this movie with low expectations. And also, I'd seen the trailer and I thought it looked quite bad. Like, it looked visually bad and also that the story would be bad. So, everything I'd seen about this was bad. And so, I watched the movie and I thought it was pretty bad. So, it's sort of completely like to I'll split into two parts, right? The story and what happened was as bad as I expected.
It was
So
just a drawn out TV show episode, right?
I thought it was pretty much two TV episodes stitched together.
Yeah,
So you've
that's
got
what it
sort of
felt
that
like.
the first part. Yeah, I don't want to give too many spoilers to people who haven't seen it, but it very much feels like there's two parts to the story, and so like kind of like two episodes. Visually, it actually didn't look as bad as it sort of saw from some of that initial footage. A lot of movies today are sort of filmed with like this heavy backlighting. It's all very flat, not very contrasty. It just modern films, for just whatever reason, they just look bad. Whether it's because they're all filmed in that volume 3D space thing, and they sort of go that way. They're not filmed in these real environments. I'm not sure. It didn't look as bad as I was expecting, outside of the first, that snow section at the start with like the AT-ATs and stuff. The CG in that section was very bad in my opinion. But then later on, when they're sort of on that hut planet, I was like, that's not as bad. Though the scene in that fighting ring looked awful, and that whole part was just awful in my opinion. But the story, just bad. Like not compelling at all. Nothing, no character development. Nothing happened. Just fetch. It was like a movie of fetch quests, as you sort of
that's
put
what it was. Yeah, so I think you and I are on pretty much the same page. I got to the end of it. I looked at Zoe. I'm like, "Did you enjoy that?" She's like, "Yeah, that was really good, Dad." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." Because it speaks to her, right? She's a 13-year-old girl, and every time Grogu did a baby noise or did something dumb, she's like, "Oh my God, he's so cute." So I guess that's what Star Wars is targeting now. It really, she enjoyed it. She thought it was fun. For me, everything you said, resonates with me. It's just the story is uninspiring. It's not exciting. Nothing has you on the edge of your seat. Nothing surprises you. There's no like, oh wow moment, or oh I can't believe that happened. I know again, I don't know if it's because I'm old now, and when I watched the other Star Wars, I was more in Zoe's position. So the laser beams were super cool, and the sound effects were insane, and the TIE fighters were like, whoa, they sound amazing, and they look cool, and the space scenes when they're chasing the Millennium Falcon were really intense. It's like, are they going to get away or not? And whereas now it's just like shit on the screen. Like you're not invested in the star fights at all. It's like, yep, they're going to do a thing there. That's going to blow that up, and then they're going to escape. And they do that. And then the next fight happens, and they're going to shoot them and they'll escape. And then that happens again. I don't know. It just, they don't seem exciting, or there's no interesting things they do. It's just, it's a canned, starfighter scene, I would say. And then the combat stuff is really repetitive as well. There's nothing, I would say, too creative, or it's like the Mandalorian just has better aim than the other guys. That's kind of it, right? And I guess he has
impenetrable armor.
Yeah, he has armor and better aim, and that's sort of it. Like, he doesn't often really outwit. If anything, he kind of goes into fights dumb. Like, not some sort of specialized tactical fighting force. He just goes in like, I'm going to walk into this problem, stumble my way through it, and either not win, and I'll be resurrected by some very convenient story plot. Or, you know what I mean? Like, he's not. So I don't know.
He doesn't gain any skills either. He just is the Mandalorian. Like, he doesn't like, oh, here's my cool new weapon or whatever, or like, I'm gonna, there's this boss or something that like I'm struggling with, so I have to go away and learn or improve myself. It's just like, he is who he is. And I think, you're talking about like the old Star Wars movies. I don't think it was a situation where those movies don't, like, I've watched them quite recently. I watched all of them like a couple of years ago. And the story in like A New Hope is quite good. Like, obviously there is some of that sort of like, it is kind of a movie for kids in some ways. It was meant for like a teen audience. There are some silly, especially like, you go back to like episode 1, Jar Jar is a very silly character, complete garbage and stuff. And they've got that whole, there's the romance plot between Anakin and Padme and stuff in episode 2. And so there's some of that, but at least in the old movies, it has this feel of like, there's this oppressed force, the rebels, who've been taken over by this dominant empire, and they're sort of having to ragtag this team together. Like, they go to Tatooine to find, and Han Solo is just there. They need to get off the planet so they can, get Luke back in action and get Obi-Wan back in action. Han Solo is just there, this very, charismatic, compelling character who you sort of, he's not a blank Mandalorian guy who doesn't really say or do anything. He's kind of like, he shoots Greedo first. Obviously, they tried to retcon that. And then he's like, oh, I don't really believe in the Force. Like there's sort of parts to his character where you're like, that's compelling. And then you start building up the forces. Like they find Leia and they sort of add her into this whole mix. And they go to the rebels. Then there's this big Death Star element. Like that's revealed to you like halfway through the movie. And you're like, oh my God, there's this huge base that can like blow up planets. Oh my God, that's crazy, right? And so there's this momentum of trying to build the rebels together to defeat the enemies. And then
Yeah,
then there's
things
the
at
lightsaber
stake.
battles.
There's
And
things
then
at stake, and they can't just walk their way through it conveniently. But they're also a team. Like they're working as a team. You know, individuals bring things to the table. They don't just walk
mm,
into a room and have better aim with impenetrable armor, and that's how the mission's solved. Because
that's right. And Luke
watching the
Skywalker,
Mandalorian, it's like watching the Mandalorian's like playing the Star Wars game on easy. You just walk into a room without a care and just blow everything up.
yeah, that's right. Or you just you don't tell Grogu like I will need help later. You just kind of like you go and you blast some stuff, and then hopefully Grogu will occasionally use the Force every once in a while to sort of like
Yes,
solve a problem for you.
when it's convenient to the story.
Yeah. Whereas like Luke Skywalker, he was a character that in A New Hope underwent a lot of development as a character. Like he picks up a lightsaber for the first time. He wasn't really in touch with the Force at all, and a lot of his development with the Force happens in the sequels to that movie. So he sort of goes from being this kind of just farm boy to being this person that's in the middle of this big. And I know that's kind of a trope that's used in a lot of movies, the rag to riches sort of thing, but like there's none of that in the current Star Wars stuff.
There's
And
like
even like,
character development, is what you're saying.
yeah, that's right. I mean, and even in, The Empire Strikes Back, there's that at the time, and obviously I experienced this well after it happened in the cinemas, right? It was released well before I was born, but, people went to watch The Empire Strikes Back, and the revelation that Darth Vader is the father of Luke Skywalker was like a massive moment, like a seriously incredible plot development.
Mhm.
And like, what do you see from that in any of the modern Star Wars stuff? Like,
That's what I'm saying. There was nothing like anything remotely like that in this movie. It was just
there's no risks being taken. They're not willing
no.
to, like, I know that it's slot into part of the timeline that makes it difficult to do stuff like this, but they can't kill off any characters. Like, they can't do any of that. They can't have characters do things that don't allow it to fit into what would happen later on. So, like, Obi-Wan is kind of, I think in this time period, he's like missing. So you can't have him in it. You can't have any of those characters really because they're all not around. But even like, cameos don't really do it a lot of the time. They're just kind of like, cool,
It
there's
doesn't
that
need that.
person.
Yeah.
It just needs like, and this is the thing that frustrates me with Star Wars is that the universe that's built around Star Wars, there's a lot of interesting stuff in there. There's like crime planets and stuff going on. There's like underworld type stuff. Then there's the whole Empire versus Rebels stuff. And then over time, the Star Wars universe has gone through these different periods. There was a period where the Republic was in power, then the Empire, then a new Republic, and then later they kind of just did the Empire again, which, whatever. But there's been all those periods you can mess around with. And what do? They kind of just create this nothing character with no character development. And he finds like marketing baby, merch person who has some force abilities. And then they just go around doing side quests.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
also, one of the other things that is ridiculous about this movie, Rodder the Hutt, the character, he is jacked, right? Like he has got big abs. He's a muscly dude.
Yeah, I'm not sure that supports the anatomy of a slug, but go on.
I know, right? Does this imply that actually all of the other Hutt species characters are just fat slobs, just blobbing around, and actually their natural physique, if they went and did stuff, is like a ripped unit kind of guy?
Yeah,
because like that kind of changes it, doesn't it?
It's like if snails bothered to be a bit faster, they'd be ripped.
Yeah, it's like I don't think that's how it works.
Yeah, they're like slug-shaped gorillas. Yeah, that was honestly when he had like sort of like human gorilla type physique, like a chest, biceps, forearms. I was like, I don't know about this. This is a bit weird. Like this is. I don't know. I mean, I guess it could be a thing, but then, as you say, it's just. I mean, it was weird. It was a weird way of going about it. I think they could have made a more interesting story while still having like the Hutts involved. But yeah, it was weird.
But
And just the
also,
voice
like,
was weird as well, right?
oh yeah, I mean, it was Jeremy Allen White, who's like a known actor, but then he's not in the movie because he's a CG character, but also that's not his voice. They've like pitch shifted it. So it's like,
Yeah,
why would you
yeah,
get a kind of famous actor to play a CG character where you pitch shift the voice? You could just get anyone to do that.
yeah. It was a bit weird. It was a bit weird.
But yeah, I mean,
Very
also
weird.
that yeah, he didn't sound like a Hutt either because Hutts didn't speak English. They kind
That's
of
what
spoke the Hutt
yeah,
language.
that's what I was getting at. So
And so, yeah, they didn't have him speak Huttese or whatever. But also, like the strong Hutt character needs to have abs. He ends up fighting some Hutts later, and the Hutts are like quite capable in their slug form. So it wasn't clear that like the ab side of things was actually like necessary. He could have just been a powerful slug with a slug body that was in a fighting ring. It was like, what's up with that? Anyway, that and his whole arc made no sense either. Like the whole redemption side of things, son of Jabba the Hutt stuff was like, come on,
yeah,
guys.
yeah, it was a completely uncompelling story. Like I said, yep, very boring. But to be fair, I've deleted it from my memories. I always do this. And what was the TV series I want you to watch?
Oh,
The Acolyte. The Acolyte.
the
Oh,
Acolyte.
it always takes
I
me a
still haven't
good
seen it.
minute. It always takes me a good minute to remember the name because I have actually
Mm,
deleted it from quick retrieval memory. But compared to that, The Mandalorian and Grogu was 10 out of 10 excellent, in my opinion. So
yeah, I think
I
these companies are starting to realize that they can't just shit out anything under a certain brand and have it be successful. Like you need to have
now they'll keep trying.
genuine. Well, I mean, obviously, there's this new Spider-Man movie that's done quite well and stuff like that. But people seem to like the story. Like I haven't seen it or anything, but people seem to like that movie's plot and stuff like that. Sort of, it's a compelling, fun movie. Whereas there was this period between sort of 2019 to recently where Star Wars, they were just like TV shows, they're a thing. So let's make The Mandalorian. And then good first season gets worse. Then like, oh, but what about Boba Fett, who we sort of introduced? Book of Boba Fett, shit that out, garbage. Obi-Wan, people liked his character. Can we do something compelling there? Obviously they could, but they made Obi-Wan Kenobi, which
I
wasn't that compelling.
It wasn't that, honestly, out of all the stuff they've done though, that's been by far one of the better things. It sort of started okay for me, then dropped off, but then sort of recovered. And
Yeah,
I didn't hate that. I didn't hate that at all.
I
It
didn't
wasn't
hate
as
it
good as it should
either.
have been, but I didn't hate it.
Yes. That was
Um,
my problem, was that it could, like, with a character that was obviously gonna have some conflict with Darth Vader at some point, they could have done such a better job of that show. M
Absolutely. You know what annoys me? Being a huge Star Wars fan and have watched it as a kid and kept in touch with it through all the years. I've enjoyed a TV show called Clarkson's Farm infinitely more than any Star Wars that I've watched in the last 2 decades. Have you seen any of Jeremy Clarkson's or
Yeah,
Clarkson's
I've seen
Farm?
all of Clarkson Farm. Yeah, great
Oh,
show.
okay, cool. That's we should be talking about that then. Have you finished the current season?
Yeah, it came out a few
Yeah, we
months
save
ago,
it. We
maybe?
save it. So we're halfway through the final episode. So because
Ah, right.
that's quite a long episode, so we're saving that because otherwise, then you have to wait like a year before you get it again. So we really savor Clarkson's Farm. We really try to drag it out. It's so good. We'll probably end up watching the last episode twice anyway. But yeah, that really, really good show. That one, absolutely love it because I was obviously a huge fan of Top Gear, and I
Same, I've
enjoyed
seen all of Jeremy Clarkson's Top Gear.
Yep, that was really good. And then big fan of the Grand Tour. And then, yeah, thought we'll give the Clarkson's Farm a go, and it's been one of the best. Certainly very quality TV. So anyway, you've seen it. So if you haven't seen it, I would recommend watching Clarkson's Farm opposed to any Star Wars content. Even if you're a massive Star Wars fan, chances are you're going to
Mm.
enjoy the farming side of things a lot more.
Mm. Yeah, I
Is
mean,
that it
most
on
people
your side
say
or?
yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, most people say Andor is the best of the live action Star Wars series. I still haven't gotten around to watching it because I normally watch shows
It's
with my partner and she doesn't want to watch it. So I'm like, I have to find time for that myself. Same with like
right.
the Acolyte. Whereas we watched, Miranda and I, we watched The Mandalorian and Grogu together and she thought it was bad as well. So,
Yeah, I would agree. Um, with the comments on And. I've watched all of Andor. Some of it I found a bit difficult, a bit slow, a bit boring. It'll be interesting to see what your thought is. Overall, definitely a good TV series, and I would recommend you watch it as a Star Wars fan. But it's, I don't know, an acquired taste. It's a different pace. It's a different kind of Star Wars story. But
I don't mind slower
ultimately,
shows though.
yeah,
That's fine.
yeah,
I've watched a lot of the sort of shows that build up over time and have episodes where it's just sort of characters talking to one another. So that doesn't bother me too much. And I was
yeah.
enjoying. I've watched a few of the episodes and I was enjoying it, but yeah, my partner was like, "Nah, not that
Yeah,
keen
well,
on
it's
it."
it's
So
definitely
fair
good
enough.
storytelling, good characters, good character development. Yeah, it's done much better than all the other stuff in that sense. So yeah. But
But yeah,
on
that's
my
pretty much it with my Star Wars watching. What's been happening with you?
yeah, on my side of the fence, not too much. I went for a walk around my backyard for the first time in months.
Okay,
Uh, I,
cool.
I was trying to convince myself to mow the lawns, and I was like, it's pretty wet. It's not quite long enough yet. So I've a 5 acre backyard for those wondering. So I didn't walk around all of it because that would have taken me maybe 10 minutes. So I did a 5 minute half walk around, and I found that one big tree fell over in the storms that we had recently, or part of it, not the
Okay,
whole
yeah,
gum tree, just a substantial section of it. So that, while disappointing and a bit annoying, I now get to use my new chainsaws. So when it dries up a little bit, I'll
nice.
go tackle that. So that's, yeah, mixed feelings on that one, but I am excited to bust out the new DeWalt chainsaw and give that a really good go. And apart from that, I'm looking forward to the weekend because you and I have a big Saturday.
Oh, do we?
Your Saturday's a bit more guaranteed than my Saturday, to be fair.
I assume you're talking about the AFL here.
What else would I be talking about, Tim?
Yeah, that must be. So Melbourne. Oh, I just had a look at the fixture. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
Melbourne
yeah.
play the best team in the league right now, Fremantle,
Yeah, at the
at the
MCG.
MCG. So
So
it's not out of the question, but
it's
difficult.
yeah, yeah, uh, yeah. And then you play one of the worst teams. So you should probably win that, and it's at your home ground at the Adelaide Oval. So I'll be watching
So
that game as
should win
well.
it quite easily. Richmond is Balin's team, our video editor. So
Here's
I
one
think he's
talk
kind of
about it.
given up. He's kind of given up on the season, is my understanding, because Richmond have won 3 games and lost 17 games for this season.
Mm-hmm.
So fantastic record there. But yes, I expect Adelaide to win against Richmond relatively comfortably, I would say. So it shouldn't be that exciting of a match. But yeah, hopefully I'll get to watch Melbourne versus Fremantle earlier that day, which I think will be a much more exciting and interesting match.
Yeah,
So
well, just don't message me if they're getting pumped because I'll be crying in a corner. No, what do you say? Crying in the shower? I'll be
yeah,
doing
crying in the
that.
shower. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll be
Just
crying in
washes
the
away the
shower.
tears.
Good advice. I might need that. But yeah, no, that's us done, I would say, for this ranty little episode where we talk about how great Reddit is and all the excellent commentary that goes on over there.
Oh, yeah, I love Reddit. Love having fun chatting about the comments and that sort of thing. Doesn't upset me or anything. So it's yeah, a lot of fun. Sometimes I get upset when I read a comment, but not on this occasion. Not on this occasion.
It's not it's not on a personal level. It's more like, how are you so, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes, I know. Anyway, yeah, that wraps up this podcast episode. Thanks for watching to the end. As always, we have our Patreon if you want to sign up and get access to our supporter feed, which is ad-free. You get it slightly earlier. If that's of any benefit to you, it's available there. But yeah, outside of that, you can just continue listening to the end of these episodes. We'll be back next week for another chat about whatever. We'll just spew something out depending on what's happening. We'll find something to talk about.
It Reddit might comment on another one of our videos and we can monetize that.
Yeah, that'll be nice. Keep generating some stuff that we can monetize later through our podcast. Thanks. So yeah, that'll do it for this one. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.